The honourable member from Pitt Meadows, Maple Ridge.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to speak on Bill C-224, an act to amend the Criminal Code, trafficking in persons. And the adoption of this legislation would remove the unfair burden placed on exploited individuals to prove that there was an element of fear in their abuse. I think that's very significant. Fear in the abuse, because right now they have to prove that they were afraid. And it's incomprehensible how the Liberals have essentially gutted this entire bill and it left it with a title. We just hear these comments from the previous Liberal member, and very solemn. But at the same time, they are actually doing quite the contrary, not protecting people, primarily women, girls, from being trafficked. On the weekend, I heard a presentation from Ally Global Foundation and about the work that they are doing worldwide. Saw a video of children from Nepal, from other countries, and how they were being basically sold by their families for very minimal amount of money, or kidnapped, used as sex slaves, used for labor, and traumatized for the rest of their lives, if not killed, abused. And there are millions of people that are being trafficked, human trafficked around the world. It is modern day slavery. It is slavery. And the thing is, it's not just happening offshore. It's happening here in Canada. It's happening here in Ottawa, or I live in Maple Ridge and Vancouver area. It's happening across. It's everywhere. And a lot of what's happening for the Canadians is done through they're lured through the internet. Children, 12 years old or older, that are lured into sex slavery, and they're not even aware of it, of what's happening. And then they get caught into this life, and then they get addicted to drugs. And, we're seeing a massive increase in the opioid crises. 42,000 have died in the past number of years. In British Columbia, we had just last year alone a record 2,500 that died. Many of these that are on drugs are those that have been addicted even through human trafficking. That is a big concern. Conservatives want to bring in significant penalties. We had a mandatory minimum beforehand. This was removed by the Liberal government. And right now, legislation, they can get away, a trafficker can get away with a small fine, $5,000. No time in jail for ruining lives. And we need to take this very seriously, because it is spreading its tentacles. And those tentacles need to be cut off. And I have a great concern. I'm Métis. Among the Indigenous population, which comprises approximately 4% of Canada's population. And an astounding 50% of those that are human trafficked in Canada are Indigenous. That's devastating. Indigenous women, girls, and it's destroying our peoples, my people, our people as Canadians. And we need it. How can we bring reconciliation? How can we see redemption? How can we see a growth, a healing? I think that this is something important. And I think that we as a government have an obligation to protect the most vulnerable. The most vulnerable. They're not that are maybe there's problems. I mean, I can think of many teenagers. I mean, I was a teacher for many years, and we were all teenagers at one time. But youth go through difficult times of feeling vulnerable, looking for security, looking for relationships, and traffickers, gangs, criminal gangs, look for those that are a bit ostracized, and then they wean them into through gifts, through attention, through so-called love, but it is really a way to trap them and to use them for financial purposes, in destroying and treating girls, women like just object. So this is something that we need as legislators, to bring in the most stringent of consequences, to set the people free. To set the people free in our country. This is unacceptable. And also, I'm aware of people that come from other countries, new immigrants, and then they get caught up in jobs, and they don't know how, it could be some type of employment, it could be in massage, it could be a variety of things, and then being trapped in this lifestyle and not knowing where to turn. So I know this is going to go to committee afterwards, and I really am hopeful. I shouldn't say I'm hopeful, because I haven't seen a lot of evidence on the Liberal side of taking crime very seriously. I mean, we've seen a massive increase in assaults, in gangs, in car thefts, and everything. They've reduced the consequences for all sorts of criminal activity, so that you'll have the same people repeating time after time crime. In Vancouver alone, I believe it was last year, the year before, the same 40 offenders created or did 6,000 crimes that we're aware of. And it was just a turnstile. It was just a turnstile. And so we can't have this destructive practice, cancer, in our society. We can't just let the cancer in there. It's got to come out. So we need strong legislation. So I really do hope that the Liberals and the NDP that's supporting will come to their senses and say, let's bring this in, let's pass it. It's already gone through Senate. I want to say thank you to my colleagues, MP from Oshawa and from Peace River Westlock, for their efforts when they brought it in 2019, and many others. There's a lot of people that say that they're concerned. We hear about from all sides. We hear about the concern, but let's put that concern into action by changing the legislation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.